So last week, Liz came and we kind of talked about different ways to give feedback, and she has that process for giving feedback. I thought it was really interesting that there are kind of really strict steps in that are involved, and there's 5 steps. Um, they're very strict steps that you take, and it will get across, like, each step does a different thing. But as you're doing it in real life, and just how discussion and conversation and language works, you might be kind of sliding around on this scale of between 2, 3, and 4, or 3, 4, and 5, or something like that. I liked that you should ask to give feedback, or ask when a good time is, instead of just jumping right into it. Because something I've learned with my job is there are a lot of entirely too far off from this. I appreciate the way that it's worked, and I've seen it work in my career. I've also seen it work if I take that same approach in my personal life, and people are less on the defensive, and they're more willing to kind of have a conversation with you. And a lot of times, an issue with something that you had, you are going to, if you ask them where they were coming from, ask them about their thought process before you try to tell them what you think they did wrong. A lot of times you'll kind of take a step back and realize that they didn't really do anything wrong, because that was their thought process. They went about it in a different way, or there are more things to the story than what you just saw. So to kind of assume positive intent, that people are not just not thinking about those things, and as it pertains to an art form as well, a performance or something, it's not that people necessarily aren't thinking about those things, but they thought about it and they decided, it's best if I haven't been able to work on this specific aspect, so maybe I won't go forward with it, or whatever that may be. So I think I really like that about it. I don't know if I really would like to. I don't know. I think it's less conversational and more robotic if you say the phrase, "I have an opinion about this. Do you mind if I share it with you?" It makes sense, and I understand it. And I don't see it necessarily as being a negative all the time. But when you think about, you having a conversation with someone, and I feel like conversations are going to be more open in that instance as well, just having a conversation with a friend or whatever. If I'm going to stop that back and forth of like, oh yeah, well I really like this, and then that person says, oh yeah, I did this with it, and this is how I felt, and this is why I did it this way, and then I could say, oh yeah, like, I thought it was interesting that you did this. I didn't really like this because of this. And then they kind of defend themselves a little bit, and they say, yeah, like, I didn't really know why necessarily it turned out that way. My intention was A, but it came out as B. So I've been thinking of how to fix it. Do you have any suggestions for me? Instead of, I have an opinion about this. Would you like to hear it? And just kind of having that marker every single time, it just kind of makes it less fluid and less conversational. So I don't know if I'm going to necessarily use that all the time, but definitely in my normal life, I use a lot of the feedback techniques already, just because, like I said, just because Apple uses it, uses things that are similar. So, and I've known them to be very effective. So, yeah, I think it's cool that, we kind of went over this in class, because now we'll be able to, like, the rest of the teams will kind of have a similar mindset as well.